Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
To help people.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got into nursing. That's how nursing expanded. So I ended up in this PhD program because they're like, well, we don't have all of those other programs, but it sounds like you need a PhD. I'm like, a PhD, me? I'm like, what am I getting ready to do with a PhD?
I'm a nurse, right?
I'm a nurse. Had never heard of a PhD in nursing. And they were like, well, you said you want to study this problem. That's science.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you, I had some wonderful people that were around me. They were like, you can do it. Oh, you're finishing up your Bachelor of Science in Nursing? No worries. Just make sure that you're enrolled by January.
Wow.
I kid you not, I can't make this up. I took 9 classes over one summer.
Wow.
And finished up with a 3.8 GPA, full-time mom, okay, to 2 small kids. And also, actually, no. So a mom, but a full-time nurse. So I still got these 2 kids, but then I'm also a nurse. So I then applied to the program. I find out that I'm carrying my 3rd child.
Oh my gosh.
And then find out I get a full ride for this fellowship that I had applied to.
Oh, awesome. That's awesome.
But I was like, I have no choice. I have to do it all.
Yeah.
So with that came resilience, of course, of time management. So even still to this day, if the day starts for me at 5 a.m., my calendar is written out what I'm doing from 5 a.m. to 5:30. It might be written down for what I'm doing from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Just to make sure that I'm fitting in family. I'm fitting in, let's say focused on finances, my education, whatever needed to be important at that time. And I was able to finish in 3.5 years. And I kid you not, 7 days of finishing in 2017, my youngest was turning 4. So it was like this trajectory of me being able to have her.
Yeah.
And so from there, I just kept going. But I had ventured over to the biomedical engineering department and said, hey, I need to develop this device, and this is what it needs to do. Through that process, I learned how to make things. Through the process of, let's say, making things, I ended up teaching. So I teach engineering students now. So I'm actually the first nurse at Case to have an appointment over in the engineering department.
Wow. And it's because you're building that item, right? Can you talk about what that is?
So yes, I actually have a RO1. So RO1 is the highest level federal grant that you can get with National Institutes of Health. And I got it through the National Institute of Aging. And what it is it's a patient smart hand sanitation dispenser that affixes to the patient's bed rail. And it reminds the patient when and how to clean their hands. And it tells people that come close to the patient to clean their hands before touching the patient.
So it's a hand sanitizer dispenser, basically. Hand sanitizer dispenser?
Yes.
Basically? Okay.
Yes. And so
And it's on the rail, so it's right there where they are.
Exactly.
So they don't have to get up or have somebody go grab something for them or whatever. It's literally mounted right there.
That's it. And it gives verbal reminders. So instead of beeping reminders of clean your hands, it actually says, please clean your hands. So it gives the verbal reminder so they're not distracted or overwhelmed by the amount of beeping that's going on in the room.
Right. That's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing. So you go from where you started in Cleveland, right?
Yes.
You go all the way through, you have a baby, a nurse inspires you, you go and get your nursing degree, Then you're inspired to go get your PhD because you're trying to help to in this sixth grade teacher, right? I mean, all this is just God's throwing all these people in your path. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, and
Absolutely.
that's what fascinates me about what I do, right?
Yes.
Because we get people's life story, and it's like, right,
That's it.
it's
So,
crazy. If you ever
yeah.
look at a map of water and how it meanders, it's kind of how people's lives go. And it's just, it's incredible because you know this, there's no way you could have written that script.
Not at all. And to your point, so much so, Mike, where every day is a day of gratitude. And I kid you not. And I will tell you, I'm giving you the highlights of those stories, but I think if I can even tell our audience, there have been plenty of times where I've been knocked down. There's
Sure.
been plenty of times of where I've been discouraged, but me keeping my eye ultimately on what it is that I'm meant to do is focusing on those things that I'm meant to do opposed to the obstacles. And with that, I can tell you even during the pandemic. So I've learned all of these things about infection prevention and control. We were just handed masks and said, just put on a mask, right? And it'll work. But if you can imagine being a nurse, having had to wear masks for TB, having had to wear gloves, understanding what proper hand hygiene looks like, knowing the risk, right? The mask can cause.
Mhm.
Because if you don't clean your hands when putting it on and taking it off, it can then become a contaminant.
Yeah,
If you're wearing gloves around the grocery store and you're picking up things, you're picking up more germs on those gloves than what you would have picked up on your normal hands.
yeah,
And
it's true.
so,
Because
yeah,
all those things have been handled by other people,
exactly.
right?
And
Who haven't cleaned their hands either, right? And then
yes,
people are in the warehouse and all that stock is sitting there. I used to work in a grocery store, so it's to stock shelves, right? And I watched people sneeze on the cans,
yes,
right?
so
I,
yes,
right? And I used to watch them do it and think, okay, I wonder how long those germs last, right? Now,
exactly.
you don't have a lot of time when you're stocking shelves to try to think about those things, but I know
Mhm.
exactly what you're talking about because I literally to this day, when I walk into a grocery store, like into the produce section,
Yeah,
I wonder how many people have sneezed on the oranges.
yes.
You know what I mean?
I
It's
know
like,
it. Nope.
yeah, because I watched it all the time.
Yes, and me and I haven't, but it's like I already know what's occurring because we're talking about people that are gonna touch stuff, meaning if
Yeah,
I am looking for that perfect apple that I'm getting ready to pay $5 for, right? Now in
right.
today's inflation,
Yeah,
I wanna make sure that it's the right apple if I'm gonna pay $5 for it. So you don't know how many hands have touched things, and so I found myself using money out of my pocket even during the pandemic, because at this point, research had pretty much come to a halt for a second because if you were not medically necessary to be in the hospital to do care, they halted a lot of research to be what was called essential or non-essential.
yeah, we pushed everything aside, right?
Exactly.
Because we were all kind of in survival mode at the time.
Exactly. But
And
I'm
it's
like,
amazing. Now we're starting to find out that the science behind a lot of the things that they recommended, like the 6 foot distance and all that kind of stuff, was all just kind of made up.
but that's what I know.
They're just
And
kind of
so,
throwing it up against the wall to see what sticks. I mean, it's scary.
right. But they didn't have infection preventionists at the table. And
Right.
so there were people that may have had some knowledge of it, but not people such as myself that studies it and knows about it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So I found myself in the community talking to everyday people and was like, "Do you understand this?" And what I did is I did these infographics, and it would be, let's say, something about going to the grocery store etiquette.
Mhm.
And it will have on there, you should make sure that you have some sort of, let's say, disinfectant wipes and hand sanitizer in the car. Making sure that they clean their hands after using the keypad.
Mhm.
Being aware, of things that everyone else touched while in the store. So making sure that they wipe down their items when they got home. Even something as simple, Mike, as their steering wheel. So many people sit in their car and eat and
Mhm.
have no idea how many elevator buttons, escalators they've touched, and they get right in their car and they're eating the french fries and the steering wheel is contaminated.
Yeah.
So just all of these practical things where people were being asked to shut stuff down, I was trying to teach people how to live and how to incorporate infection prevention into their daily lives. Something that started so small is me doing these colorful infographics and literally putting them up online turned into me making these packets for people. They were these little infographic sets. And we did about 250,000 door drops, meaning we left them on the store steps of people around Northeast Ohio because we knew that there's a digital divide. We knew that they weren't getting practical information, meaning anyone can say just wear a mask or just
Right.
clean your hands. But if I'm not doing it because I'm on the right at the right time, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So I was showing them, okay, yeah, if you're going to play video games, make sure that you're cleaning down the joystick or everybody's cleaning their hands. If
Mhm.
you're playing cards, you can't wash the cards. If you're going to talk mess over the table or over the bar, wipe down the bar. So
Mhm.
just really practical things. And I started getting calls from places such as the YWCA, the New York State Board of Education, just a plethora of people that were like, "Hey, share this information with us."
Mhm.
Forbes, I randomly reached out to them and were like, "The CDC is not giving us enough information on how to wear masks, and
Yeah.
I'm concerned people are gonna be putting plastic on their face and suffocating,"
Yeah.
because everyone was so panicked and they were just trying to stay safe. And it just exploded into all of these wonderful opportunities, allowing me to share with people how do they stay safe on a regular basis. I wrote a House bill. So I wrote House Bill 628 in the state of Ohio, which mandated hospitals to provide patient hand hygiene education to patients in acute care and long-term care. And that was done with State Representative Juanita Brent. And so it's still pending right now, but it's just still the fact that people don't know what they don't know. If you don't know to ask about patient hand hygiene in a healthcare facility, you don't start thinking about it until you've already acquired a healthcare associated infection.
Right.
So the goal is to prevent people from getting that.
Right.
So
Once you have it, it's a little too late, right?
that
It's
part.
it's the ahead of time thing that you need to be doing to help prevent it.
Exactly. And so it just is this preventative movement of how do we think about our everyday environment and really normalize not being sick. I
Yeah.
don't know about you, but I heard from a lot of people that they did not get sick during the pandemic severely. Some got sick. So definitely, condolences for those that did, for those that died. So it did happen.
Yeah.
But there were so many people as well that said, "I did not get sick," or "I was less sick during the pandemic than I ever have been."
Right.
And we had periods of time where we were without vaccines. It
Mhm.
was people doing infection prevention and control practices, meaning that they weren't just allowing sick people to come over to their homes. They weren't just allowing themselves to be around others that were ill. They made sure that, hey, if we're going to gather, leave the windows open so we can get proper ventilation. So we learned how to be very creative.
Mhm.
And I'm always of the opinion, how do we stay ready so we don't have to get ready?
Right. No, I totally agree with that. I think that's incredibly wise. And if we had had more of that before COVID hit, right,
Yes,
there'd be literally tens of thousands of people that did not pass away.
absolutely. And
I
it's
mean,
scary now because we're
it
right back
is.
there. Like we're right back there, meaning it's like a all or nothing kind of thing, meaning people are back out coughing and sneezing. People are back, not cleaning surfaces again. And you do concern yourself with, we know that we're in a place where things are changing. The H1N1 and COVID were less than 10 years apart. We were at one point where the average for a pandemic would happen every 10 to 30 years. And now we're looking at 9 years. So are we increasing frequency? And again, for whatever reason, we can't, let's say, think about the causes as much as we have to think about what is our reaction going to be or how are we going to be prepared.
Yeah.
And so I always think about things from that standpoint. But it goes into a lot of my other work. So as I circle back around and I talk about poverty, and coming up in poverty, I always know that life happens in the most dynamic manner. So my husband, so he has a education degree. He also went back for civil engineering. So life has also had that spin around for him. And he would work as, let's say, he's worked as a car salesman, mortgage broker. I could go on and on and on.
Mhm.
And so what he ended up landing on was appliances. So he has a used appliance store, actually like the largest used appliance store here in Northeast Ohio.
Hmm.
But his work combines with my work, Mike, because it addresses my research on hygiene poverty and
Okay.
its relationship to infection prevention and control.
Okay.
So during the pandemic and even now, people's inability to have sufficient detergent to clean their clothes, to have, let's say, sufficient dishwashing liquid, to have, let's say, body soap that, maybe is not going to break them out because chemicals don't agree with everyone.
Hmm.
But if that's all that you can afford, that's all that you can afford. Healthcare workers, or let's say, just say public service workers that may be dealing with sewage every day. We don't question if these individuals have the resources that they need to make sure that they're staying free and staying away from the germs that can then lead to infection.
Yeah.
And so with the appliances, it's such a niche because anybody can be his customer, but you'd be surprised how many people may have a functioning refrigerator but not freezer, or their food is not getting to adequate temperature, which brings us to foodborne illnesses, or poisoning. So
Right.
some of the same, let's say, not same bugs, but similar staph infections and illnesses that you would see inside of the healthcare settings, we're seeing those same illnesses inside of the communities.
Hmm.
Which then, if someone is, yeah, if they're already off of work or if they're having these conditions, how do they then get to make money? How do they get to that job to make money? And so I just find how it's coming full circle with my upbringing, with my research, and with what it is that he's doing for us to be able to say, how do we address the very issues as it relates to infections that keep people from being healthy in their environment,
Right.
keep them from being personally safe.
That's amazing. That is so cool how it's come full circle for you.
Yeah, it has.
That's really cool. I love the hand dispenser thing on the rails of the hospital beds. I mean, that's,
Yes.
you saw a need and you filled it. I mean, that's
Yes.
incredibly cool. And it's exactly what you're continuing to do.
Yes. And so we're in 2 local hospitals here. So the Cleveland VA, which is a public hospital, and Metro Health System, which is also a public hospital.
Well, for
So
now,
for now.
now that you've done this show, it'll be worldwide, right? It'll be right.
Absolutely.
We're gonna put them in
And
all the hospitals.
yes, I'll have to tell them though, like, hold on a little bit because right now we're in pilot phase. So we're just wanting to make sure and not really wanting to make sure as much as just discover if them having this device, which we're positive about, will lower the amount of pathogens or the colony forming units that lead to infections on patients' hands.
Yeah. Oh, it has to. It has to.
Yes.
Like I have a truck that's sitting outside here. I'm at my
Mhm.
house, right? And I still have hand sanitizer in my door of my truck because
As
I'm
you
in properties all the time looking at them, right? And I mean, I'm not in there with gloves on. Do have gloves that I have in my truck,
oh,
but
so
I
you're well versed.
but I don't take gloves in. I make sure I hit my hand sanitizer on a regular basis,
So
right?
you're well versed then. If you're saying
Well,
you've been in a lot of properties, that means that you've seen a lot of things that can be potential contaminants.
oh, absolutely. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And the ones that I walk in are potential investments. So a lot of times they're distressed, right?
Yes.
So they're not the cleanest places in the world.
Mhm.
I mean, that's
I
kind of a
know.
polite way of putting it, right?
No,
They're
I
kind of
know,
a mess,
trust me.
So I'm super careful about, what I touch and that kind of thing. And then I'm always careful about making sure I wash my hands before and after and that kind of thing. So yeah. So and when I went and spent the time that I told you about in the emergency room,
Mhm.
uh, one of the things that they told me was I was immune compromised. And
Oh, okay.
so I and I had the thing that landed me in the hospital was I had tachycardia.
Yeah.
And so I'm under doctor's care, right? And the doctor's like, okay, you're not lifting weights, you're not going to the gym, you're not right. And I said, look, doc, the best way that I know to keep my health in place and keep infection prevention for me is to lift weights. Every time that I've ever regularly lifted weights, I've been able to not get sick. I've been able to prevent myself from getting sick, right? It's my immune system gets built up. Okay.
Yes. Do you know why that is?
So I'm sitting in the examination room and my wife is there, and this doctor's looking at my wife like, who is this guy? Right. And my doctor turns to her and she says, he's a thoroughbred. You're dealing with a thoroughbred. Have you ever been to the horse races where they put the thoroughbreds in the chute and they're getting ready to open the chute and the thoroughbreds are jumping around and they're hurting themselves in the chute if you don't open the right? She's like, you got to open the chute, you got to let him run, and you got to give him enough rein. And I literally looked at my wife and I'm like, she's calling me a horse, right? But the thing is, I never realized how much my wife got me, like how much she,
Awesome.
you know what I'm saying? And for her to say that to the doctor, right? And the doctor's like, okay, I'll compromise with you. You can go to the gym. In fact, you can go to the gym every day if you want. You just have to lift half of what you used to lift. Done. So I went to the gym and I lifted, she goes, I don't care how many reps, just half of what, right? So I went to the gym, and what was amazing was when I lifted half of what I used to lift, I didn't get sore.
Oh.
So I could go to the gym every day.
Wow.
And it helped me to keep from getting sick. I believe that this is a big, big deal. And I believe it's bigger than most people realize. And I know you know this.
Yes.
The more you physically use your body, okay, the more you build up your body's immune system.
Absolutely. And so
you can prevent infectious disease that way.
yes, come on. And that is a part of the formula. And you are making me smile ear to ear by saying that, because I will tell you, you're absolutely right. So all of the cortisols and the things that build up in our body because of stress, exercise is a way to be able to alleviate it. And
we hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.